Everyone, I'm Loida with Team BC in Southern California, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit of what my experience has been working with investors, more specifically those that like to buy and hold. So if you want to know all the details, make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin, I do want to mention that this video is in partnership with WeLock. WeLock actually sent me this device here, and it is a smart doorknob. Now, if you know anything about me, if you follow me on YouTube or on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, then you probably know that I am a big fan of anything that has to do with technology and applications. So this smart doorknob, I actually took and was able to replace it on one of the doorknobs that I have here at home. And the cool thing about this one, once I installed it, is that first of all, it only took me like 10 minutes to do it. Again, if you know me, or maybe you don't know me, I am the type of gal that doesn't mind using drills or using screwdrivers. So I was able to easily do this very quickly. I set it up, and in less than 10 minutes, it was ready to go. Now, this smart lock, you can actually program a specific code or password using all of the digits there on the keypad so that you can use this for yourself, or for example, if you have anyone that's going to your home, whether it's a friend or a family member or a relative or whoever it is that you want to give a specific passcode, you can go ahead and just set that up specifically for them.
So once you download the app onto your phone, this is exactly what the dashboard looks like. And something that's really cool is that you're actually able to open that doorknob by just clicking this button here on your phone. It takes a couple of seconds, it makes some noise. Next thing you know, you can open the doorknob that way. So the app does have a lot of awesome features. First of all, you can see exactly what the battery life is like of the doorknob. If you click on history, it'll allow you to see when the doorknob was open and at what time that happened. So it's great for you to keeping track on when the doors are being opened. You can change the PIN, you can do a temporary password, you can open up again the device just from your phone. So it's super helpful and easy to use, especially if you're an investor and have an Airbnb property that you want to put it on.
So if you guys want more information about WeLock or this device or any device from this company, I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the description box below so you guys can just go ahead and click on there. So let's talk about my experience working with investors, specifically those that like to buy and hold. Now, we all know that we have been in this crazy time for the past year and a half, and out here in the Los Angeles area, we see a lot of rent control. A lot of the investors that I have been working with recently try to stay away from areas that have rent control, because we all know that in these areas, if the rent is below market value, it is very difficult to raise the rent. And if the tenants have been paying on time, if they haven't been any type of trouble, it's very hard to evict these individuals. So for the most part, even when I cold call, I always come across investors that tell me, you know what, I'm looking for units. If it's less than 4, it doesn't really make sense to me. So it has to be more than 5 or at least 5 in order for me to at least have a good return on my investment. Now, there are two different types of investors. Those that are pretty new and have some type of money that they want to start leveraging. So they'll usually go after 2 units up to 4 units. And then there's those big time investors that have a little more money and they obviously are looking for 5+ units. I have come across individuals that are open to 18+ units that tell me, you know what, do not show me anything unless it makes over $25,000 a month in rental income. So with those, I obviously, first of all, I have a list of all of my investors that I work with. Whether they are ready now, or maybe they're not looking, or maybe they have told me that if a crazy good opportunity comes up, for me to reach out to them. So for the most part, any investor that buys and holds wants to know exactly how much rental income they can possibly get for all of the units. They'll want to know how many units are vacant, if the tenants have been paying, if they have not been paying, what is the condition of the units, have any upgrades been done to the home, and not just cosmetic upgrades, but we're talking about piping, the plumbing, the roof, the AC, if it does have any, the water heater, and all those big ticket items. Now, as I'm talking about investments, a lot of investors will tell me that they want to purchase units, but they prefer for them to be vacant because they want to use that property as Airbnb. I have one client right now that has 6 units, and she does Airbnb on all 6 units. It brings her over $175,000 a year, because we all know that the Airbnb market is booming right now. Now, the great thing about doing a property and having it as an Airbnb versus an actual just a rental property with a long-term tenant is that with Airbnb, they can charge a little bit more, and most of the time they end up making more money monthly versus having a tenant. So for example, in this case that I'm telling you about, my client that has these 6 units, she can easily rent out each unit, which is a 1 bed, 1 bath, for about $120 a day. Now, let's say that she is able to rent out that unit for half a month or maybe the full month. She'll get more money in those 30 days than if she were to rent it out to a long-term tenant. And let's say that the market value just for that 1 bed, 1 bath unit right now is about $1,800. So that just goes to show you that the Airbnb market is something that a lot of investors are interested in. However, an investor does have to have some type of experience with the Airbnb market and how that entire world works. Otherwise, they're going to see that it is very time consuming, and it's definitely something that they just do not want to be a part of. Now, those investors that I have worked with that have properties that they run as Airbnb is that they have everything automated. They have a property management company or someone that is in charge of all of the inquiries that come in of the people that want to stay into the units. They have a cleaning crew. They have a maintenance person. And again, these are all people that you want to have ready, because if you are an investor or if you're working with an investor that is looking for Airbnb properties, they might come to you and ask you, do you have these people that you can refer to me? That way everything just runs on their own. So again, these investors, they have different things in mind. The investors that run properties as Airbnb, obviously they can get a lot more money, but there's also a lot more headaches and issues that can come up. Now, let's talk about the rental properties. Now, when it comes to rental properties where you have a long-term or a short-term tenant, and again, these are tenants that are paying the same rate monthly. Now, one of the drawbacks of having a rental property where you have whether it's a short-term or a long-term tenant, is that you can't raise the rent. At least you can't raise it significantly. It has to be within reason, depending on the area. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, out here in Los Angeles, there are some cities that you just cannot raise the rent a certain percentage every year because of the rent stabilization ordinance. And you guys can look that up. During the pandemic, it was so hard for homeowners to even try to sell their properties that were under rent control because they could not evict the tenants. They couldn't increase the rents. And what we see is that any properties that are in these areas, sometimes it's a lot harder to sell them just because the tenants have been there for a very long time. They're paying very low rents. So any investor that's interested in units but sees that the cap rate is very low, it just doesn't make sense for them. So the pool of buyers, it's much less, unless a thing that a seller can do is give the tenant cash for keys so that the tenant can move out and relocate somewhere else. Now, if a landlord wants to get rid of a tenant in a rent control area, they do have to provide some type of relocation assistance. And that can be upwards of $20,000 or more, depending if there's kids involved, if there are older individuals involved, and it just can become a very tedious and long process. Sometimes the tenants just don't want to cooperate and they end up tearing up and messing up the property. So those are two different scenarios when it comes to working with investors that want to buy and hold. At the end of the day, it's all about the numbers for them, and you as a real estate agent should be able to do your homework and present to them the options that to them might make sense. Now, some of these opportunities are ones that they are going to be super excited about, and others they're just going to pass. But you always want to at least make sure that if you do come across anyone that does tell you that they are an investor looking for multiple units or that they are interested in buying and holding, make sure you keep track of them, because You never know when you're gonna come across an opportunity that you can just shoot to all of your investors, and next thing you know, you're gonna have a property under contract. So that's it for this video. I hope that it helped you a little bit when it comes to getting a different perspective when it comes to working with investors. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with someone else, and thanks to Wheelock for partnering up with me in this video. And I'll see you guys on the next one.